Thank you. Okay. You guys, I am really excited.
Sorry, I accidentally muted you. Will you unmute yourself?
Thank you.
Like, what's happening?
I'm talking to myself. Okay. I am so excited. I signed up for this date. And then like when I figured out what days, like what chapters it lined up with, I was really stoked because I feel like this is my wheelhouse. And I'm just really excited to get into some conversation with you guys about these two chapters specifically and kind of like dive in a little bit to some reflection. And so we're actually going to work backwards. So we're actually going to talk about chapter 10 first, and then kind of go into chapter 9. So chapter 10 of this one was about like your leadership and judging your leadership on like on the success of your team. And to be honest, like I've read this book 3 times, and every time I read it, this chapter, like it kind of like gets me, I feel all sorts of ways about it, because I'm like, yes, the success of my team is part of it, right? And the first time I read it, I was like, no, like I'm a leader whether my team's successful or not. And that was like such a big shift for me, because it truly is a reflection. Like our leadership and the success of our team, the success of our leaders is truly like a representation of our leadership, right? And so in the back of that chapter, I really loved this quote, and I just want to read it for you guys. It was like the literal last thing before he asks the reflection question, but he says, leadership is meant to lift up others. Peter Drucker observed, leadership is the lifting of a man's vision to higher heights, the raising of a man's performance to a higher standard, the building of a man's personality beyond its normal limitations. In other words, what Drucker was saying is, judge your leadership by the success of your team. If the men and women working with you are growing, improving, working together, and winning, then you're doing well as a leader. And I just like absolutely love that, because it's not like specifically, it's not only in their performance, but it's like, are they growing? Are they improving? Like, even if it's just a small thing, but like, are we showing improvement? Are we working well together? And are we having wins? And then like, that is an indicator of your success as a leader. So I wanted to start us off with this chapter first, because I feel truly like part of our growth in leadership is that piece of chapter 9, which is talking about like being a lifelong learner and all of that. So that's why I wanted to start here. Some of the questions that he asked, and I like really encourage you to take some time to reflect if you didn't already on this page, but some of the questions that he asked at the end of this are so stinking good. How successful is my team? Like, just like sit for a second in that, like, how successful is my team? And then this is the part that's like, ugh, but like, we have to do this. In what ways should I take responsibility for their shortcomings? Like, just sit in that for a minute, because we don't need to take responsibility. We shouldn't take responsibility for their business or for them not showing up in their business, right? But like, what ways should we take responsibility for their shortcomings? Like, oh, that's a tough one. And then how can I help them improve? How should I become a better leader? Those were the questions he asks. And I just want to like open it up. I don't know if anyone feels confident or comfortable in this piece, but like, what ways do you think we are responsible for the shortcomings or the downfalls or whatever of our team? Like, what ways are we responsible for that? Does anybody want to like unmute and share?
Oh, I have a lot. You want all of them?
A lot too.
Give us a couple. We'll share the love.
But first one that comes, I'm super unorganized. And so I know that I create chaos for my leaders often in their heads, because I'm just like, boom, 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 boom. And I don't give them like anything in a systematic way. And so I know that that is the way I inhibit my leaders, especially my new people that are just like, whoa, like info overload.
Yeah, I feel that. Chan, did you want to share one?
Yeah, I think like the conviction I felt with this chapter was maybe I haven't like created enough like accountability for my team. Like, I've always been a very independent person. I never really did team sports growing up. And so like collaborative work has not really been my strong suit. I'm just like, if you want to be successful, then go freaking figure it out and go do it. And so like I kind of have that attitude with my team, but then I look back and I'm like, wait, I've got a lot of girls that are still in the same position that they have been in for several years. Like maybe I need to provide more accountability. Maybe I need to provide more like work sessions with them, and truly like show them what they should be working on a week to week basis instead of just expecting them to know and to do it at this point.
Jordan, can you let someone in the waiting room? Thank you. Yeah, Chan, I totally feel that. And I think that is like a shortcoming that probably a lot of us, like as we get like a little further away from being in the trenches of like building that team, and as we get to more of these like leadership type roles where we are like doing those leadership activities, you know, and we forget almost like
put your earphones in or something. This is the book study that I created.
The trenches, right? And so sometimes it is like going back, and we've said this so many times, like going back to the basics, like reminding ourselves and the people around us, like how we recruit, how we duplicate, how we help people go silver, hosting events, all of that stuff, right? Anyone else, like what do you feel like is a shortcoming that we can be responsible for with our teams?
Chandler, I was just going to say something really fast. Galatians 6:9 has been our verse for the whole year, and it was do not get tired of doing good things. And so basically, it's like I have to remind myself all the time, am I being like lazy here, or am I just tired of doing the same thing over and over for these new people that keep starting, right? So like I have to constantly evaluate that exact same thing. Anyway, Jordan, you were going to say something.
Well, I love that you just said that, because like when we read the 5 levels of leadership, it's reminded like you start over at level 1 with every single person. My shortcoming, I think, and I did not even realize it until these last couple months when I've been showing up and my team has been growing, was being inconsistent. And I'm one of those people who like, you know, I stay at home, I have the kids, but when I work, I want to work. Like I don't want to do it 10 minutes here and there. I want to sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours and bust it out. And I was realizing that I wasn't sharing when I was working with my team, and, you know, just sharing the little things like that. And so I felt like they needed the motivation, or like they needed to see what I was doing in order to get the things done. Like I'm their leader. That's what I'm doing, and I'm doing the work and showing them that. And so being consistent in that. And then of course we grew over 100 points last month. So being consistent in that.
It's so huge. And it kind of connects with what Chan said about like, I mean, we're doing our work, we're sending messages, but if we're not sharing our message examples with our team and telling them like modeling for them, like, this is how I do it while I stay at home with 2 kids, they don't see that, right? Yeah. What I did today is totally, and
with that, and I love sitting like, sorry,
go ahead.
Like, I'm watching this video while I'm washing dishes. Like we can even do it like that. Like I'm driving home and I'm sending these messages, like little.
Yeah. And I love, Carissa, what you said in the chat about like, we're also really responsible for their level of vision. Like to me, that is so like, that is like a huge piece of it, because they don't, even if someone is like all in, all on board, like we have to help create that vision for them. And that is like so key. And especially as we've experienced things, like as we've gone to a Plexus event and like creating that, like you can be here too, or as we've paid a huge bill or made a big dent in something, or quit our job or whatever it might be, like we have to help create that. And that is where like that whole like borrow my belief until you're there comes in, right? Because if a brand new person is like, I don't see how I could quit my job, I don't see how I could buy that car or go on that trip or whatever, like we are creating that for them. And I love that. Anyone else have an area they feel like we are responsible for or like in that shortcoming of our teams?
I think that taking on the mantle of teacher, that's just been like really resonating with me recently, because I was totally resonating with what Chandler said about, you know, just kind of sit in your corner and bang it out and y'all go figure it out. The rest of us did or whatever. But that attitude isn't going to raise up or develop people. Now, yes, you can recruit some self-starters that will just take the ball and run with it, like a lot of us on the call have done. But we will help more and we will develop more by slowing down and like just being willing to be a teacher. Think of, and I resonated with the Galatians verse because that made me think of school teachers. Every year, they're most likely teaching the same grade and the same thing, but it's just to different kids. And they show up every year with, hopefully enthusiasm about educating the next class. And I was really resonating. I don't know if you guys already talked about it, but on page 29, that it says, it's been my experience that successful people who are not naturally gifted in leadership sometimes have a difficult time transitioning from achiever to leader. They are used to performing at a high level, doing tasks with excellence, reaching their goals, achieving financially, and then they judge their progress by those things. And then when they become leaders, they often expect everyone else to perform at the level they did and to be self-motivated. And if the people on their team don't perform as expected, they ask, what's wrong with them? Which I just resonated with that so much. And I think it was Sunny Keck in the One a Day in May videos. She was talking about how important personal growth is and to be invested in that. And she said it's because we're working in a people business, and without self-awareness and personal growth, we assume everybody's like us. And we wonder what's wrong with them. And she said that is why personal growth is so important, because we're in a relationship business where we're working and developing people. So I think for me, just that acceptance of I am a teacher, mentor, whatever, leader, and I have to be willing to teach and reteach and repeat the same things over and over and over again to show people, really to show them what to do, how to say it, what to say, all the things.
Yeah. And Chandler, you said that you're like in that boat right now with like you're a high achiever and you're judging that. And I feel like I remember having so many conversations with Jordan about, me feeling like I'm recruiting these people and like, they're just not like me, like I'm a go-getter and I'm a self-starter and I'm a natural leader and achiever and whatever. And I'm like, they just don't get it. And it's like, it's that like whole idea of like walking with your walkers, running with your runners. And in that same like sense, it's like, we do have to go back to like level 0 with every single person. Say, like, I am a teacher. So yes, every year I go back and I teach unit 1 with my class, even though like I taught it 7 times in the last 7 years. These key people haven't seen it yet. And so, yeah, I have to show up excited and eager to like teach them and watch them grow and flourish, Okay, so that last little piece that I want to talk about on this chapter is on 127. It was in that part where he talks about like the questions. And so this like leads into chapter 9 is, are my team members growing? And I think this is like such an important piece of it. At the third paragraph down, he says the responsibility for developing people falls on the leader. And that means more than just helping people to acquire job skills. Okay. So this is that whole piece of, this business is like mindset and skill set, right? So it's not just teaching people the skill set. The best leaders help people more than their jobs. They help people with their lives. They help them to become better people, not just better workers. And I was like, to me, that's like, that is this business, right? And we talk about all the time, the community and the friendships and like, some of our best friends and are built from meeting them through Plexus, right? But it's like, we have to start that at the jump, like with people, not just teaching them, this is what you do to work your business. This is how you sign someone up. This is how you send a share cart, but also like, how can I make you just be a better person? Like how we see these, I see this all the time in messages, like, how can I help this person? Or what should I respond back? And it's like, hold on, stop. Like they just shared something really important about their life with you. Just be a person, like go and love them and remind them that like they're worthy and that we don't want them to feel terrible, but like, don't just go into like, here's my product recommendation for you. Right. And like, sometimes we get stuck in that, like, I'm helping you be a Plexus recruiter or a Plexus duplicator. And we forget that like, I'm also helping you just be a really great person. Like, and that is so important in this business. So I like how he brought that out. And like, how are we helping our people grow beyond just like, yeah, grow your team, but like also just grow as a person. So I really liked that part. Did anything stand out in chapter 10 for anyone else before we move backwards to chapter 9?
I was just gonna share, because what you just said about helping them grow as a person, I feel like that's part of the culture of the team that you create. And that goes exactly what I was saying. Like that's something you can get people plugged into. That's something that you, what was it? That we're responsible for is getting them plugged into a culture. And so like, I mean, sorry, hopefully it's okay if I say the word sex with your kids, but like we talk about all the team, like jokingly on our team, like go have sex with your husband, go on dates with your husband. Like, and I feel like that's part of the culture of our team now, is that we work hard and play harder, you know? And so anyway, I feel like that is so much fun to be a part of. And you can create that as a gold. It's just you model it.
Yeah. And I feel like that is the same thing in terms of like, we're a team that like we're constantly growing. And that's what chapter 9 is all about. Like is growing constantly, right? Like becoming, it's the title is becoming the best leader in the room, right? And so perfect segue into it. But I think that you create that because I've been other places where no one ever shared a podcast with me and like shared their takeaways and held me accountable. Like it's a culture of our teams and it's something that we can create as a silver, that we can create as a gold to, hey, I'm listening to this. Like, let's connect later and share your favorite takeaways, even if it's with one person on your team. And it's like, it's just ingrained in us that like, we're lifelong learners. Right. So, yeah, exactly, Jordan. Like we're not just sharing things about practice. We're sharing like, hey, I know you're a group of mamas. I trust you. What do you do when XYZ, you know? Okay. So going backwards to chapter 9, which is about growth. In the reflection questions at the end of this, I loved how, let me find it really quick. I loved how, he brings in, this is, you know, if you know me, you know, this is like one of my things I'm always working on, but it's about like listening, like, and we've talked about this on these calls before, like, how do we listen? How do we be like, show that we're listening instead of just like waiting for our turn to talk. Right. But like one of the questions he says is, how often do I simply listen? And I'm like, not often enough, right? Just listen, not listen to offer my advice, not listen to share my experience, but I'm just listening. Like I'm just listening. And I think about that in terms of like being a mom, right? How often am I just listening to like my kids around me and like, instead of trying to jump in and help them solve a problem, like just sitting back and listening so that I can learn from their experience. Right. And that's the same thing that's happening here. Like when someone is sharing about, you know, their health goals or their what they're learning about when they're duplicating in their team or whatever, like instead of like, this is my experience, this is what works for me. If we just sat back and listened more often, we would learn a lot about the people that we're leading. Right. And then I also liked the question where he says, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to change my attitude and become a learner? And so I think this is something for me that was really important. That was a shift. And I talked about it last week, but I came in with this attitude of I'm a leader. Like I'm a leader in all the things I've ever done. So I'm a leader. Right. And yes, I have a lot of really great leadership qualities, but I had never been a leader in Plexus. I had never been a leader in network marketing. I had never been a leader with these people. So like Jordan said earlier, like we start at level 1 with everybody. So we have to be a leader, add value in all of those ways. Right. And so what do I need to change about my attitude? And I think this is a question that we could honestly ask ourselves every single day. Like, what do I need to change about my attitude so that I can lead my people better? So I think that like, I don't know, I just really loved everything about this chapter, but some things that stood out to me specifically is like, people don't grow automatically. And so that is where like the dropping the podcast, dropping the sharing a book with someone, sharing something that you've learned or something that like, I think this is hard to be vulnerable as a leader, but being like, I did this wrong. And like, therefore we can all learn from my mistake. Right. A question I have for you is, he kind of gave like the steps, like how will you grow? And he says, invest in yourself first. And then he said, invest in yourself first, be a continual learner, lifelong learner is what I call it, and create a growth environment for the people you lead. And so that is, again, like the culture. So I would love to know in some ways that, like, how you have invested in yourself that has helped you create that culture for your team, if that makes sense. Like, what are the things that you have found that you can do for yourself that are easy for you to duplicate down, or to share with your team to create that culture of growth? Anyone wants to share?
Okay, I have kind of a random example, but there's been a lot of fruit from it. So I'll share it. And sorry that my voice is hoarse. I had to invest a significant amount to get to Gold School, just because the one that was happening around the time I qualified was so it was a far away flight, and it was expensive hotel because it's near Disneyland. But I had a earner who lived in California who wasn't going to have her sponsor there with her. Like, I had earned it with a different team member, and her sponsor wasn't going to come. And I just saw that there was a need for her to have upline support. And I knew she was going to go to that Gold School because she was in California. And I was like, this is maximally inconvenient for our family's schedule. My husband's in residency and we have 5 kids, and it was expensive. And she's not my direct, new senior. But I felt like that was one of those times where you take a calculated risk and you invest in Gold School, for instance. And there's just been a ton of fruit with that particular team member. And of course, Gold School is not the only thing, but it was significant and it mattered that she went to that, and that she had a little core of people and Megan was there too with her 2 new fast starts. And so to have that little core group of people there, I feel like, Megan, wouldn't you agree that that whole little group has continued to really rise up and culture developed as a result, and we of course took that opportunity, like we did a team call from there, all of us. And yeah, that was an example I wanted to share.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it also creates that, like, that that community and like that trust, that even though you weren't her direct sponsor, it's like she means something to you. She's impactful to you, and therefore you're going to show up for her, And I think that then that trickles down, because now if she were in that same boat, she's like, well, Carissa did this for me, and I'm going to do it for my level 2 or 3 or whatever, And so I think that's so important. And just the time that you spend together, like with someone like that at Gold School, that's invaluable, And so she's able to take that and run with her business. So I love that. Anybody else?
What was the question again?
Just like, what have you invested in for yourself, like made an investment in yourself that has been able to help you create a culture of lifelong learning for your team?
I can share a little bit just about, like, I hated personal development, and I told Chandler and Haley Jenkins that I would not be reading books. I would not be doing any of that. And now I actually love it. And I did the Brooke Hemingway 12-week course or whatever. And then, like, it was expensive. And I was like, oh, I don't really know if it's going to help or not. But I went from senior gold to senior ruby in a few months. And I know it's because of what I learned in that. And now I can teach my girls that. And now I have 2 of my own girls, like, pushing for ruby. And I know that it's because of the culture that, like, Jordan and Chandler and Haley Jenkins set for us. And then also what I learned from Brooke Hemingway, like, being able to learn that yourself and then be able to give it to your team has been really, really successful for us. So.
Yeah, Haley, and I think like what you said really nails it on the head. Like, there is a piece of like, yes, my uplines can create this culture, but you have to create the culture specific to your team. Yes, it's going to look very probably similar to like your larger team culture, but like you also have to go learn things on your own and then bring them to your team. You also have to say, my team, this is a slight tweak or whatever, this is what works well. And then that's your little team culture. And I love to see that on like sidelines, because we all do things so similarly, but also there is like little unique things that are special. And then it feels cool to be like, this is like my little thing that I can teach, and like my team can do this, without it being like competitive or anything like that. It's just adding to the value that's already created by like the larger team culture.
No, I definitely agree, Katie. I think it's my team all works, my entire team. We are all full-time workers. None of us stay home. And like our larger team, we do have a lot of stay-at-home moms. And so like, it's really cool to work with like sideline people or like learn how to create something for yourself, which I was so uncomfortable doing. And I was like, Chandler doesn't do that. Jordan doesn't do that. I'm not doing that. And then as soon as I switched and did it the way I wanted to do it, we went from senior gold to senior ruby. And it was like, oh, just do it your way. Like you can still do things like as your group, but I do things a lot differently too. But like I pull things from Katie Burns and Marissa and like everyone. You just work, I don't know. So that's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, I love that. Jordan, were you going to say something? No. I thought you were
Well, it's so funny you're saying this because I had a call the other day with a girl that's not even on our team, and she was like, tell me, like, I feel kind of stuck. I'm like, okay, well, tell me what you do for your team to lead. Like, what do you do? She was like, man, I plug them into all these things that are already done by my uplines. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, when have you been creative? When have you spent money on your team? Like, you can do that as a silver. Like, you don't have to wait till you're a diamond to do that. And so I love that you brought that up, Haley, and you're so good at it.
And I think that is like, that's a hard, it can be a hard, like, I know us as Jules on Jordan's team had like a big growing pain of that, where we're like, you do everything like so well, but we need to be under the umbrella and we need to lead our teams. Like we still want to be like under your fingertips and we still want you to do all your amazing things, but like, we also need a chance to lead and rise up so that our teams like see that in us as like us being creative, us starting an incentive, us doing an accountability group or whatever it might be. And I feel like a lot of times when you have like really strong leadership and like legs of leader, like we all do, like amazing leaders above us, sometimes it can feel hard to, as a leader, even as a silver or gold, like where's my place in this leadership like leg, right? But I think that is so like, it is so simple to be like, just to find your strength in leadership and to roll with it. Like if your strength is doing some sort of call a week or doing some sort of activity challenge or whatever it might be, like you get to do that with your team. And that's so fun and exciting. And you can start that with 2 people on your team or with 20 people on your team. Like it doesn't matter. You get to create that culture, which I just love. Anyone else on that topic?
I was just going to say really quick that, can y'all hear me okay? Because I'm driving. Okay, great. I just think it's important, and I feel like I'm kind of relearning this because as I shared with y'all before, there was a period of time where I just felt stagnant, like specifically as a leader. And I think one thing I've realized as that shifted for me, and I've been pursuing growth intentionally, is it's good for us as leaders to continue to be challenged. So if I'm not personally feeling challenged, then I'm likely not seeing a lot of growth. And therefore, I'm not able to pass on growth to my people and to my leaders, right? So I think that's like another good check for us. It's like, am I ever feeling challenged in my leadership? Is there any area that I am pursuing growth in that maybe feels hard or feels like a stretch or feels out of my comfort zone? Because that's where so much growth happens. And then we pass that on to our teams, because I was beginning to feel, yes, Carissa, I am leaving Cedar Rock, and I can't wait to tell you that. But speaking of growth, my husband and I just spent 2.5 days like intentionally pursuing growth as husband and wife, as people, as believers, and we were deeply challenged. And I think even just taking personal growth within my marriage or within me personally, that also is going to reflect in my leadership, because there are things that I am growing in and gaining and stretching myself that don't necessarily have to do with leadership or plexus, but that is going to trickle out. And I just love it. I'm so excited about that. And so I think just like the heart of my message here, I guess, is just we need to continue challenging ourselves if we're going to be able to offer out to others as well.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. And I know, Jordan, you said this last night on a call. You said something along the lines of like, your marriage is better because of the leadership and like the mindset work that you've done through Plexus. And I think that we can all probably relate to that. Our friendships, our parenting, I sit back and reflect so much more as a wife, as a mom, as a daughter, because of the things that I've learned like through this business, through mindset, through all of these, these books that we're reading, all of that stuff. I 1,000% agree. I think that one thing that go
Can
ahead.
I
Jill.
add one of mine?
Yeah.
That I think might be applicable to like gold, senior gold. I feel like when I started this business, it was like right before the pandemic. So I'm like having a hard time remembering all the things we did. But something I've always made a point in my business was to open my front door to my local team. And it didn't matter if I was gold or senior gold or ruby or senior ruby or what. Like I knew the power of getting people together in a room and learning together. And so every year we've had Super Saturday at my house in my living room. We've always had a good turnout. Every year we host, we have food, we have a photo shoot after, we make it like a fun party. Every year we've had a Christmas party, whether we eat out or it's at my house, just because we need that like connection. We just had our second Gold and Above retreat, which has always been really huge for our team. Sorry, my child is starving. Just little things like that. Like I just remember looking back and my husband being like, wow, this is costing a lot of money. Like we don't really have the money to do that right now, to host all these people or for you to book Airbnb. But now he gets it. Like he sees the growth. We've experienced, not just the income growth, but like the team growth. And now there's no question. Like he's like, do it. This is an investment in your business. Do it. Book the Airbnb, buy the food, do whatever you need to do because he knows. And so anyways, I just want to share that because I think there's a lot of power in getting together like face to face with your team.
You're stressing me out waving around kitchen scissors while you talk, but okay.
And Whit's sitting right here.
Yeah. I think that it's so key. And it's something that a lot of us are like, oh, I don't have a local team or I don't, but like, if you have one person in your area, get together with them, invite them over for a coffee date or whatever, let the kids play outside, whatever it is, like that is so impactful, like so stinking impactful. It doesn't even have to be a Super Saturday event. It's just like opening your door and building that community. Like, and to me, like, I'm like, that's the kind of culture I want on my team, even if it's with one person, right? It's just,
I'm remembering we used to do wine and work on Wednesday nights. I would get a couple bottles of really cheap wine because that's all I could afford. I would order Pizza Hut and people would come over. This was pre-kids. They would come over from like 7 to 10 after I worked my daytime job. And we'd all bring our computers and we'd have dinner and have our cheap wine and we'd sit together and talk about messages, objections, all the things. Like we would just bust it out and it was so much fun. Also, fun is a core value of mine. So gotta have fun.
And I think that just you reminding us of that, like if being around people like that is like your worst nightmare, then that like, and then that's not your core value, then don't do that. But like, you're going to find the thing that like does fuel you. And you're like, this is the thing. This is like, maybe you're one of those people that has all the time in the world and wants to do like check in on your people on phone calls, like hour-long phone calls while you're driving or this or that or whatever, like you will find what is the thing that really excites you and brings that culture to your team. Right. Okay. As we wrap this up, I think one really, really important piece that is something that we all can probably grow in, is on page 124, where he talks about, as a leader, you should never expect loyalty from others before you have built a relationship and earned trust. So this goes back to all the things that we've kind of just talked about. We start with every single person. Even if we're a level 5 leader and like we are creating leaders, like every single brand new person that we start with like level 1 leadership. We've got to build the trust. We've got to build the relationship, right? This is a relationship building business. And so often we skip that part or we speed through that part, right? And so I just think this is an area that like we need to keep on the forefront of our minds. Like we are building relationships with people. We need to encourage people on our teams to be building, not just like, hey, I'm building a relationship with you so I can sign you up to do Plexus. No, like legit, love people, build relationships, offer something to them. Like what is something that you can go talk about for 30 minutes? Share that with people, like bring value, not just to your social media, but to your relationships. It doesn't have to, it could literally be gardening or I don't know, maybe you're a composter, like whatever it is, like adding value to your relationships. That is how you're going to build trust. And like, that is I mean, that is the most important piece of this. So I like how he says, demanding it upfront seldom works. The loyalty of team members comes as a reward to the leader who earns it, not the one who yearns for it. So I just think that is like, I just think that's so key as we like we're finishing up this book, I think next week. And as we just like go into summer, because obviously summer, especially if you have kids that aren't normally home and they're home, like this is the time to pour into how can I add value to my relationships in person? How can I add value to my relationships? How can I like, so on social media, like virtually, how can I add value to my current customer base? How can I add value to people that don't care about Plexus at all? Like when you think about that and you can grow in that, I think that is how you can get through really busy seasons like summertime. Anyone have anything else they want to add about growing, lifelong learner, anything in those chapters?
I just love the quote by Harry Truman on page 108. You cannot lead others until you first lead yourself. Like, mic drop.
Yep.
Mic drop, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that is an area that may be like a scary feeling for some people, especially like if you're gold, you're like, and you feel like I'm not a leader, or like, I don't have a team of like anyone who wants to do this business with me yet. I don't have other leaders to raise up. Okay, well then go lead yourself. Go be the best leader you can be for yourself. Then when your team comes and you have leaders that are ready, you're ready to lead them because you have done it for yourself. Love that, Chan. Anything else?
Yeah, I think it was Tamara. Or she was on this call. She get off?
I think she jumped off.
I
They
think
had
it
bad
was
service.
Tamara years ago that said you're not gonna get a dream teamer until you become the dream teamer. And that's like exactly what that quote was. And that's always stuck with me. So Tamara, you're not on, but thank you for sharing that years and years and years ago.
And I think there is that like yearning for like, oh, I just want a business builder. Oh, I just want a business builder. I just want a business builder, you know, but it's like, we have to be our first business, but like, we have to do that. And then we're going to start attracting people that are like, okay, I see what's happening. I see these leadership skills being raised up. I want to be part of that, right? We're not going to attract leaders if we're not leading ourselves. Anything else?
I think that what we know about mindset coaching and how our minds create everything. And so the thoughts that we're thinking are what's creating the reality. And so people on our teams need us because we are the influencers, not maybe the only ones, but in a Plexus sense, we're the influencers of their thinking. And it's just really interesting. I was listening to a call by Genevieve, and she was saying, we can teach all the strategies and tactics, but not be effective because our mindset and our energy is what creates the outcomes. And so I think as we raise up more leaders, as we really hone our skills, I think it's I'll say it, just a little selfish and a little lazy to just be always on the, oh, I want a business builder. Oh, I want a business builder. Instead of being like, okay, well, let's work with who we have now and learn the skills and just practice, instead of being like, oh my word, that person totally wasted my time. They left and they took their gold team with them or whatever. But have more of the mindset of, you know what? I'm getting better at the skill of helping people share or showing people how to post or what to say or how to respond, and having this open hand of, well, I'm learning a skill set. I'm learning leadership skills. I'm showing up consistently. And God knows who those business builders are that are going to join our team. And when it's time, He will bring them. And we will be ready for it because we've been working on those skills. Anyways.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I can relate to that so much because I remember like being at gold for 6+ months, not even re-ranking. And in that season, I could have totally leaned out and been like, I don't know. But instead I poured into my own leadership. And practiced and failed a lot and practiced more and failed. But that when Marissa came on, I was like, I'm ready to go. And I was confident. I did things I had never done before, but I acted like I had done them hundreds of times. So like for her, it looked as though like I was a pro, and I had practiced these things, but I had also failed a lot at a lot of things in the time before my business builder came along, you know? And so I think that is so key. Like that practice piece is like, it's just so important.
I feel like our brains sometimes want us to just always look to the past for what is reality or what happened instead of looking to the future. I'll just share a quick example. So I've been at a couple of gold schools, and so has Justin, and quite a few of those people that went with us to gold school either are doing nothing. And so sometimes I've had to battle in my brain, like, is gold school? It's totally worth it. It's top-notch training. But I chose, right, that, well, just because of that past experience doesn't predict what is possible in the future. You know, maybe it is a filtering process, or maybe those people had life stuff that happened and there will be back, you know, we never know. But when I went with a couple of golds, like Carissa said, we met out in California, which was a big investment on time and energy and, sacrificing different things, convenience. But that group of girls, I mean, they're rolling, they're running. And so I think we have to guard against what's happened in the past and look for the possibilities in the future of future business builders. And, that our current or past experiences are preparing us to be more equipped for, the people that are yet to join our teams.
Yeah, 1,000%. Okay, so next week is our last week as we finish up this book. I just want to say thank you. I know this is like the beginning of summer for so many of us and kids and craziness, but I'm really proud of you for being here today and also just committing to this book study. This is part of it, being a lifelong learner. Like this is literally what we read about in these chapters. So I'm really proud of you for being here, and we will see you all next week. Bye.